DW Africa Link.
Meet our demands or we strike again. That's a warning from the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, to the Nigerian government. The union suspended its 2-week warning strike, effective from October 22nd. ASU then gave the government a 1-month deadline to meet its demands. Now, this means the deadline for the government to act will end on November 22nd. Lecturers want action on unpaid salaries, promotion arrears, and long-promised revitalization funds. So, what has been achieved so far? Can all demands be met before the deadline? And what does this say about the Nigerian educational system? That's what's coming up. I am Eddy Micah Jr., and you are welcome to Africa Link, the podcast connecting you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
The peace in lecture halls could quickly unravel in the next few weeks. Lecturers are prepared to go on strike again if the Nigerian government does not address their concerns. ASU's demands are nothing new and include a fundamental review of their pay structure. Did you know, according to some estimates, some professors in Nigeria still earn less than 650,000 naira a month? Now, that may sound like a lot of money to you, but that's less than $400 a month. This makes them among the lowest paid academics in Africa. While the latest talks have led to promises, the history of broken deals leaves them skeptical. For more on this, let's bring in Dr Ayodeji Awobiyide, lecturer at the Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. I also have DW's Abiodun Jamiu based in Abuja. Hello and welcome to Africa Link. You go first, Dr. Awobiyide. This feels like deja vu. Why are lecturers constantly going on strike in Nigeria?
Thank you for having me. Well, the frequency of strikes in Nigerian universities is attributable only to the government. So it's a lack of sincerity on the part of the government that has led to all these frequent strikes that we're talking about. As an undergraduate student myself, I also had to get the brunt of one of the strikes, while I was in the university. And if you look at the history of university strikes, you would find that at every point in time, it has been the failure of the government to meet up with its agreement to the union that has led to the strikes. So ultimately, you would find that ASU would have used several means of engaging with the government, negotiations, seeking for interventions by the elites and other stakeholders in the society. But the government seems to turn a deaf ear every time until ASU resorts to the strike option. And that's why we are where we are. And that's why strikes continue to be a recurring theme in our universities.
So why did the union decide to call off the strike, knowing that, looking at the history, once you pause the strikes, you don't still get everything that was agreed to? Why do you think they did that?
Well, in my opinion, I think that the strike was called off because all the other university unions voted for the strike, the one strike to be called off. University of Lagos ASU branch, which I belong to, voted for the strike to continue. In fact, voted for a total and indefinite strike. That was what the university voted for. But of course, don't forget that as unions, there's like a federation of these unions all over Nigeria. So the majority of the unions from other campuses were of the view that the warning strike, was sufficient, and that they believe that given the 1 month timeline that the government has proposed to solve those problems, that something fruitful will come out of it. So it was basically a case of the democratic exercise of voting rights by the unions that led to ASU suspending the strike. But my own branch of the union, the University of Lagos ASU branch, voted for the strike to continue and for it to be indefinite. However, we have seen this playbook before, where the government says, "Oh, suspend your strike. Let's sit down at a round table and then let's discuss these things and let us see how we can resolve these issues." But of course, we know the history, and of course, we told the ASU leadership that this is exactly what will play out, which is that they will promise you a few things, they will try and shift a few grounds, but ultimately you will not get all that you deserve. Now there are other unions who believe that, well, the last time we went on strike of 8 months, we only got 4 months or 4.5 months out of it. So given the current state of the economy and how inflation is biting, I'm not sure that my colleagues in other universities are willing to go on another strike where they would not get any income whatsoever. So for some of our colleagues, this income is their only source of livelihood. So therefore, if you say they should go on strike for a whole month and not get paid, it has its own ripple effect in their families, in their own finances, and other issues. So I think that was the overwhelming sentiment.
You're part of the academic staff union of universities, that's ASU. What is at the heart of what you really want from the government?
Okay, so for colleagues, right, because there are a lot of angles to this, and even internally in ASU, there have been arguments back and forth on what exactly should be the focus of ASU struggle. A lot of us believe that the focus of ASU struggle should center on the welfare of the staff, welfare of colleagues who have been impoverished by the peanuts that are currently being paid for our services in the universities. So a lot of my colleagues share the sentiment that ASU's focus should be on proper welfare structure for university workers. For instance, we have I think we have the lowest remuneration package in the whole of West Africa. Meanwhile, if you draw a parallel to what our colleagues who go and teach in other African countries like Uganda and Kenya, what they are paid $3,000 to teach abroad by the Nigerian government, by the Ministry of Education. And then while they are in Nigeria, they are paid something around the range of $250 or $300, which is worlds apart. So the focus of the struggle, ideally for our members, is on the welfare of university staff. Now, there are other things that have been added to the struggle. For instance, the last agreement that was negotiated was the 2009 agreement, which was about welfare, about university intervention, revitalizing the university system. For instance, if you go to our universities, you would find that government's involvement in terms of putting in resources to bring us at par with other universities across the globe is very minimal. I mean, we look at our budgets in the past few years, maybe less than 20% have been given to education in the past few years. But, and it's showing in the quality of graduates that are coming out of the system. Because what you even have Nigerian graduates doing well is because a lot of personal sacrifices have been made by the lecturers. A lot of us have the passion to teach, and that's why we are still here giving our best, sometimes at a personal cost. There are other things that have been added to it, which I don't want to major on. But for us, largely as a union, the struggle is on us earning a very comfortable salary and remuneration package that you can use across board in Africa that is comparable to other universities, South Africa, in Egypt. I mean, let's use the African standard, for instance, and see if we will not do better than what we're currently doing.
I remember reading around and finding out that generally the salary structure for lecturers in Nigeria is one of the lowest on the continent. People get paid below $400, and compared to the rest of the continent and indeed the rest of the world, that seems to be quite low, which is definitely, as you say, one of the major grievances that lecturers have. I'm going to come to you, Abiodun, because at the end of the day, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. And by grass, in this case, I mean the students on campus. You've been covering this story closely. What's the mood like on campuses now that the strike has been called off?
Yes, Eddie, the mood on the ground is mixed. There's relief at the immediate return to classrooms because before the strikes, there were students, preparing for their final year thesis writing. There are also those that are about to be placed on their internship, IT placements, and some of them for the 2 weeks that the strike were on, or less than 2 weeks. A lot of them were, unable to even know what their fates will be. But for others, it's also guided with skepticism. We spoke with students at the University of Ibadan the Usman Fodio University in Sokoto, and as well as the University of Abuja. A lot of them are happy to be back. I mean, it's a head of the disruption, and some of them can go ahead with some of the plans they have academically. Go on IT, go on internship, complete their thesis and their projects. And also there are those that also want to get done with schools because it's taking longer than expected. So but many told me that they are not celebrating because there's no cause to celebrate. Because at the end of the day, this is just 1 month break that was given to them. Based on previous engagements between ASU and the Nigerian government, if nothing substantially is achieved, there is the likelihood that there's still going to be another strike.
In a sense, what you're saying is, instead of optimism, people are somehow bracing for the next shutdown or strike. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely. So they are expecting another shutdown. Some of us were also products of Nigerian universities. I was supposed to graduate since 2021. I eventually ended up graduating 2023. That's like extra 2 years because of ASU strike. So for a lot of them, there's no cause for celebration because they know definitely that based on previous engagements or past history with the Nigerian government, if nothing is done, the lecturer will still go back to on strike.
Right. So ASU said the decision to suspend the strike was partly out of respect for students, parents, and Nigerians who showed solidarity. From what you've seen, Abiodun, how much public trust or even sympathy does ASU still have left?
ASU still command some level of sympathy among groups like parents, who are anxious about their children's, future because they definitely want these things to be done with. And across board, if you have any Nigerian students today, any Nigerian parents today, what they will say is that they make the government that the government should just accede to their request because that is basically what matters for their students or their children to go back to class. But among the public, there is outrage because they felt like this is an endless cycle of strikes. So there should be a novel way for ASU to actually engage the Nigerian government other than going on strike. We understand that strike is like the last resort that Nigerian lecturers employ to further their demand. But at the same time, I felt like there is time. It's now time for the union to also think beyond industrial action every now and then. And while at the same time, the public are asking that there should be a framework of sufficiency of funding for Nigerian university that will not eventually have to rely heavily on the Nigerian government. But if that should be the case, there will be a lot of burden on Nigerian students because the cost of school fees will go up. If they have to resort to the students' loan, it will be a big burden on them in the future. So it's palpable among the public. They want an end to this strike. They want an end to this seasonal strike in Nigerian universities.
Deji, on the other hand, there are people that feel that ASU is being very insensitive when they are fighting for themselves. And at the end of the day, it is those in class, the students that need to be educated, that are suffering. What is your response to that?
Well, my response to that is that in every battle, it's very unlikely that you please everyone. So you would always have these perspectives. But it's important to remind those people that hold that view that the quality of education that your ward or your children receive in the university is very important because that's the platform upon which their entire careers would be built upon. So if you have a government that is not equipping laboratories, or a government that is not providing the much needed textbooks for the humanities, or does not have a world-class library, or does not have access to digital libraries that students can be able to access for their projects or their research, then you're sitting on a keg of gunpowder because ultimately you're going to graduate half-baked products. And when they get into the marketplace, you then come back and then lament about, oh, these people are not employable. And if you look in the past few years, you will find that there have been several cause for concern raised by certain industry experts about the employability of Nigerian graduates. Now, the ones that you see that are doing well out there, it's because of the passion and the devotion, despite the inhumane working conditions that the government has imposed on lecturers that have come out, well. So for me, I will tell them that these politicians don't have their children in Nigeria. A lot of their children are outside the country studying in Europe, in America. So they have they're detached from the struggles of the federal universities. So we need to jointly fight this battle together. And on the issue of strikes, you know that strike is always the last resort in industrial actions and industrial negotiations. For the past 2 years, ASU have not gone on strike. What did the government do? The government played up this particular refusal of ASU to go on strike as one of the achievements of this current government, that ASU have not gone on strike in the past 2 years. Yet, the government has not done what ASU has requested it to do. Several requests were made, several calls were made to the government to ensure that this is addressed. It wasn't addressed up until now, when you now have senators now speaking out. Now, if you do a survey among the political class, how many of the kids are in these universities? Maybe less than 5%.
There are many, many more kids in school that are still suffering from ASU's strikes, right? So that is also something that needs to be highlighted. You may be right.
Yes.
There are people in authority who don't have their kids in the school, so they may not feel it. But when you go on strike for weeks and in some cases even longer, at the end of the day, it's the kids that are suffering. So I guess some want to find out from ASU, is there any other way that ASU can get the government to fulfill its promises other than going on strikes?
Well, I'm not. ASU has deployed several measures, several tactics, but I mean, this warning strike is an example of ASU being reasonable to say, okay, you know what? Let's see what we can do in 2 weeks. If you agree in 2 weeks, fine, we'll do that. But I do not see any other potent weapon. And I mean potent because this is a government that does not understand dialogue, doesn't understand negotiations, does not understand the need to keep the students in school. And that's why I highlighted the point about the political class's behavior.
Surely the point about alternatives is key to discuss, right? Alternative ways of pressing ASU's demands. For instance, maybe sustained dialogue or phased industrial action instead of total strikes, something that does not end up making hundreds or thousands of students suffer.
Yes, so that's why this time around, what the ASU did was first and foremost to issue several releases. If you look online, you find several releases over the past 2 years, several engagements by ASU with the government to say, once we avert another strike, it doesn't work well for us as well because we don't get. I mean, we're still being owed 3.5 months salary. So it's as if ASU is just going on strike and the members are basically enjoying one largesse somewhere. We also suffer this brunt as well. This time around is a warning strike for 2 weeks. Before the warning strike was called, there was a notice of strike for over a month. Over a month to say we're going to go on a warning strike. Can we sit down and have this discussion? Government did not budge. So the government owns the yam and the knife. Everything is in the hand of the government. If the government shows a will to want to discuss these things, to keep the children in school, we will not be where we are. If, for instance, the government says every year we would increase ASU's remuneration by 5% on a yearly basis, you will not see the strikes. If government says we're going to deploy 10% of the budget on funding the universities, funding the libraries, you will not see ASU go on strike. So it's the refusal of government to do all of these things. So because it's very easy to demonize ASU as a union that just goes on strike. But you look at the flip side, the students will just go to school and graduate. What's the quality that they're going to get? Is it until you get to Europe or America that you now see how a university should be properly run?
ASU has given the government 1 month to conclude the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement and other pending issues. What exactly does the union expect to see within this window? And if you don't see that, what are we saying? Would it mean that ASU is automatically going to get back striking?
Okay, so what that 1 month means is that in that period we expect that in good faith the government will come to the table, would implement an agreement that already is 16 years old. 16 years old, that agreement. So that tells you the length of time the government has been foot dragging on this. Now, if the government fails to implement it, but what ASU ordinarily would expect is maybe we'll not get everything that we're asking for. Maybe we'll get half of what we're asking for. And then let's see if we can, on a yearly basis, continue this discussion. And it is in regard to the interest of the students. That's why ASU has called off its warning strike. And they're saying, okay, let's negotiate while the kids remain in school. But if the government does not show good faith, then ultimately ASU will go back, ASU will go on strike.
Abiodun, as we start to wrap things up, you've heard a lot of what our ASU rep here has been saying, which is why I asked about sympathy for ASU and all, and you say people are still in support of them largely. What is the alternative for them when schools are shut? How do they get by with their education?
For many, when schools are shut, for many, what a lot of people do, or I included when I was a student, was to engage in other activities. Other activities in the sense that it could be in terms of internship with any activities of their choice. Sometimes it could be writings, some people getting in touch with their writing, but a lot of people, we should be mindful that a lot of people do not have this luxury, do not have the privilege to say they want to do internship, they want to learn a work, they want to do this and that while they were at home. Some people are just at home throughout the period of this industrial action between us and the Nigerian government.
Thank you, Abiodun, for that submission. And you have the final words, Dr. Ayodeji Awobiyide, to wrap this up.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a very interesting conversation on the issue of strikes, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to clarify a few things. I think the only way that we, ASU as a union, can avoid perennial strikes is for constant engagement with the government, hoping that the government will be willing to sit at the table. The reason why we've had these strikes is because of the refusal of the government to sit at the table until there's a strike that's been declared. So hopefully, the Minister of Education, through the minister, can dedicate, maybe an arm of the Ministry of Education to engage directly with the federal universities or state universities, ASU as a body, so that every concern of ASU can be addressed, and the government's position on every of these issues is known timeously. It's not hanging on the hair until a strike is declared. So with that kind of engagement, there will be little or no reason for ASU to go on strike, because it's either whatever is being proposed or requested is being worked upon, and then there can be timelines that can be attached to it. It's also be important for the Senate Committee on Education to also play a pivotal role in this, because the Senate and the House of Rep, they represent the people. So these people also include the students who are the persons who feel this brunt of this strike. So with the Senate's involvement, then some political leverage can be added to ASU struggle, and then we may see the end of strikes in our universities.
Okay. Thank you very much to the both of you for your submissions. Dr. Ayodeji Awobiyide, lecturer at the Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, Nigeria, and DW's Abiodun Jamiu, our correspondent based in Abuja. Thank you. Lecturers at several universities report that although some allowances have been paid, many remain outstanding, such as the funds meant to revitalize campus infrastructure. Meanwhile, students who are just resuming classes express mixed feelings.
The strike has affected my studies and future plans in the sense that I don't graduate at the time I'm supposed to graduate, and probably go for NYSC because age is no longer on my side. I have to get things done. And given for the fact that I would have to go for a second degree, my master's degree, and have other certification and do other certification exams, the strike has affected all of those plans, and it's quite sad and it's quite heartbreaking.
It feels good to be back after, I think, about 11 or 12 days of ASU strike. Considering the fact that I'm my final year and the final semester, I look forward to a particular day and date, which is December 12th, by the grace of God, to wrap up my studies and my stay in UI. And I hope nothing hinders the date. So I was very happy when the strike was called off.
So the clock is ticking. For students and families, the stakes are high. Another strike would throw millions of careers off track again. For lecturers, it's about dignity, survival, and the ability to deliver quality education. The long-term cost of further academic unrest will not only affect staff and students, but could also affect the country's future. So, will this truce last? Only time will tell. Share your thoughts with us on Facebook at DW Africa. Listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabi. And I am Eddy Micah Jr. Thanks for listening.